Crude oil dove overnight on headlines that Russia would dial back its presence in Kyiv militarily, but then WTI found some buyers, and it's been pretty firm throughout the session. Let's bring in Scott Bauer to talk about whether or not traders should be trying to game these headlines. Scott, the most dangerous trading game right now, trying to predict what Putin is doing, or did we have Scott Bauer? Okay, the most dangerous game is trying to get the hit off the ground. All right, there's the chart. Down 1% right now. At least we got his audio, I believe. Scott, you hear me?
I got you.
Beautiful. All right, talk to me, Mr. Bauer.
Oliver, this is such a tough trade. We all want this to happen. We all, from the humanitarian side of this, want this to happen. I don't know that anybody really believes it's going to happen. I think the bigger question is, though, Oliver, and I actually reached out to you earlier today about this, is what happens if there is a ceasefire? What happens with all of the sanctions put in place over the last month or so against the Russian economy? Do we just pull those out right away? Does oil start flowing again? What happens to all of that? So I think that it is a very, very tough trade. I would be fading the rallies and the sell-offs that we saw today based on, unfortunately, there being some peace negotiation.
Interesting. So a shorter term type of trade here, Scott? You think maybe some of this optimism has got extended?
Absolutely. I really do. I think that it is very tough to justify the rally that we've seen on the market based on, what's going on overseas. And I think it's also tough to justify what's going on in the commodity space based on what we've seen. The volatility we have seen, Oliver, is something, that we probably have not seen in our lifetimes, maybe save for one or two other times. And I think any kind of line in the sand that any trader wants to take, you've got to do that with some very, very quick stops, or at least a position where you've got an option position and you know what your maximum risk is, because the moves that we are seeing are absolutely wild. And you know what? Liquidity has dried up a little bit, right? Because of margin requirements in some of the commodity space, liquidity has dried up a little bit, which is exacerbating these wild moves even further.
Scott, there's a few different ways to express a view on Russia. If you do want to fade some of this optimism, you can do it in crude, as we're talking about. You could maybe look at wheat, gold, arguably stocks. Which asset do you think presents itself as the purest Russia trade if you do want to trade around this and try and fade some of today's action?
I think you just look at the move in the triple Qs, and you look at, especially given what's going on with interest rates, I think that's, to me, where I would probably turn to if I wanted to fade this action, because higher rates here, we know fundamentally are not good for many of the NASDAQ stocks, the high growth stocks. We're coming up to some significant technical area in the NAS and in the triple Qs. So if I was going to fade this rally today, that's probably the spot I would look to. I think it's a little bit too dangerous in the commodity space. Truth be told, and you and I have talked about this here over the last 4, 6, 8 weeks. In crude, I have sold every rally. I've gotten stopped out once or twice, which is fine. I've done a, pretty good job being able to manage that. I was ready this morning, and I talked to Ben about this morning. I was ready to dip on the buy side around 95, 96. Actually, never got there. So I'm ready to dip my toes back in if we get sub 100 again. Interesting.
All right, like that perspective. So looking for an opportunity to enter on the other side of the trade now after fading crude, and we're far ways away from those highs, but 105. Doesn't seem too far away, so maybe you won't have to wait too long, Scott. But buyers swooped in today pretty quick on crude.
They sure did.
It's not a bad comeback here.
A lot quicker than I was able to get in.
Seems like maybe your point here that perhaps we're already kind of seeing some of the fade from that sentiment, at least in WTI, but not quite in stocks yet. Still jamming. Russell up almost 3%. Scott Bauer, thanks a lot. Glad we got you back here. CEO of Prosper Trading Academy.